Albert Breer, senior NFL reporter, Monday Morning Quarterback, is joining us. Let's get right to it. So there's a story out there that the Cowboys were caught a little off guard with a Mike McCarthy departure. And I've theorized this a couple days ago, Albert, that I think once he got Don Yee as an agent and Mike Vrabel went to the Patriots, that McCarthy viewed himself, as did Don Yee, as the best candidate, and I think he may be. And I think they had a little leverage. And he looked at Dak's contract. He looked at the running back room and went and asked. Yeah. He went and asked for 5 years guaranteed. And Jerry's like, whoa. Jerry from Landman said, no, I'm a Wildcatter. I'm not giving you that. And then I think Mike McCarthy knew that with Dak's contract and that running back room and whiffing on the last 2 first-round picks a little bit, Albert, Dallas may be a tough place to win. Is that possible?
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think this is actually a little bit more deep-seated, and I do wonder if Jerry Jones has been whistling by the graveyard on this for a while. I go back to the summer, and I got the sense back then that Mike was really kind of, I'd say not happy with the fact that he had to go through the situation that he was being put through, where it's very unusual to be in a contract year as a head coach. But not only that, like all of his assistant coaches were also in contract years. So everyone in the building effectively, or at least on his side of the building, is, going through the season with this hanging over their heads. And that was certainly reflected in the way the days after the season were handled. There was no negotiation. It never really got to that point. And, I think what Mike McCarthy was looking at was like, how do I want to live out the rest of my days as a coach? And, I don't think he was interested in going back into a situation after he just went through that year where he was going to be year to year again. So if they were going to do a 2 or a 3 year deal, I don't think that was interesting. I don't think that was of interest to Mike. I think he wanted to be in a place where, he would be able to build going forward. So, I think the opportunity out there in Chicago, the opportunity out there in New Orleans, where he knows Mickey Loomis, by the way, like those two worked together for 5 years when McCarthy was Jim Haslett's offensive coordinator from 2000 to 2004. I think you look at the landscape a little bit and you say to yourself, like, there's a better opportunity to build somewhere else. Like, why don't I do that? And I think part of it too, Colin, is just maybe the Cowboys having a little bit of an inflated view of themselves and their job. It's, well, who wouldn't want to coach America's team? Yeah. Well, if you're not willing to make the long-term commitment, Mike McCarthy wouldn't want to do.
Yeah, the J-Mac and Ryan kind of feel that maybe they got a little over their skis. And I've said this before, it's a bad running back room. They have one weapon. I would move off Micah, get another first-round pick in a weak draft. I think you could get that and go get like 2 offensive weapons. I just don't think in a world of Philly and Detroit and the Rams and Green Bay and Washington, I don't think they have enough firepower, and we don't know what Dak's going to look like off a second injury. Now, I'm going to throw something.
The Micah thing's really interesting. Just really quick, the Micah thing is definitely worth monitoring. He's going to be looking for, I think he's going to be looking for $40 million a year. So how they handle that, I think, is going to be one of the key subplots of their offseason, no matter who's the coach.
Well, that would be a little bit of a gut punch. You think they're top heavy now? Okay, I'm going to throw this at you. Ohio State's got 14 5-star guys. Notre Dame's got 1. That's fewer than Kentucky football. I said this, when you know this well, Sean McVay, 30 years old, goes and interviews in L.A., and Stan Kroenke's like, we're not letting him out of the building. This kid is magic. And he did. He took 4-12 to 11 wins, 32nd ranked offense to number 1. Goff was 0-7. Goff all of a sudden was a playoff quarterback. If Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame win, or put on a classic 24-23, Ohio State clearly has a huge advantage in talent and skill. What about the Bears going, okay, McCarthy, Ben Johnson, leader in the clubhouse, are we looking at in Marcus Freeman? They should not be in this game. Penn State's got more good players. Texas does. Georgia does. Oregon does. Does Freeman have a shot in Chicago?
I know they've kicked it around. Would they actually do it? I don't think so. I'm not sure that they feel like that's what they need right now. And I think mainly because they really would be looking for somebody who, if it's not an offensive coach, it's somebody with a coherent plan for the quarterback, somebody who's going to bring in somebody experienced to work with the quarterback, and somebody who's going to have a plan beyond just who the first coach might be. So, like if you're going to lose your offensive coordinator, say after 2 or 3 years, because Caleb really kills it. Okay. Like how deep's your well of NFL context where you'll be able to replace him? That's what I'm saying. So, I think the Bears started with the leader of men thing, which Marcus Freeman 100% fits. But as they went through the last 5-6 weeks of the season with Thomas Brown as the interim coach, and they watched how Caleb's play and development suffered over the last month of the season because, they had a head coach who was also the offensive coordinator, stretched a little thin. I think they kind of came to the realization, okay, like we still want a leader of men. We still want somebody who can coach all 53 and who can affect all 53 and who can change the culture in our building. But we also need to have a really solid plan for the quarterback as a part of that. So, in a perfect world, they killed 2 birds with 1 stone, and they wind up getting somebody who is that guy who can be both. I look at Marcus Freeman as somebody who really intrigued them at the beginning. But maybe as they've gone through this process, you look at it and you need a very defined plan for the quarterback. And I don't know, in fairness to Marcus Freeman, after the experience that he's had, that he'd be able to do that at the NFL level yet. I think he's a bright coaching prospect for the NFL to look at over the next few years. I just don't know that Chicago's a spot.
Yeah. Raiders are funny. It does appear they don't have a GM and a coach or a staff that Brady's got influence. How much Tom has, I don't know, but he's got some. Which would lead me to believe he would like an offensive guy. That would be my guess. My guess, I don't know Tom well enough to have a big, strong opinion, but Ben Johnson would probably, my guess, be now that Vrabel's off the board, would be his number 1 choice. That's how I think Brady would see the world, because he and Josh McDaniels were so close, right?
Mm-hmm.
You buy that?
I agree. And they had to convince him to come in. I think I said this to you back in November, December, where Ben was going to approach this coaching cycle differently than he has the last couple, where he wasn't going to take any interview where he didn't think, like, I eventually would accept that job. And so, like, there were teams involved where, like he said, like his camp would say to the team, like, hey, look, like, don't even put in a request. We don't want to have to turn you down. We don't want to embarrass you. And the Raiders initially were one of those teams. And over time, the Raiders, wound up deciding, okay, like, we're going to put a request in. They put a request in. Ben's camp asks why. Tom Brady makes a phone call. And, all of a sudden, I think, Ben Johnson is looking at that Raider job differently. Now, why? Well, one of the messages that's kind of come across is that Tom Brady's not going to put his name on something that's embarrassing or a clown show. And so, like, that is one thing that you say, okay, like, Tom Brady's going to have some level of influence here. There's also, Tom Brady is kind of the front man for some of the other partners. Egan Durbin is the CEO of Silver Lake. He bought 7.5% of the team. That was approved back in December. Tom Wagner is Tom Brady's partner. There are going to be more resources there. And so that's part of it as well. Now, is Brady going to be there day to day? No. He lives in Florida. His kids are there. He's obviously got other commitments, but certainly he's going to have an influence. And I think that the message that's sort of been imparted on Ben and all the other candidates is this is a different version of the Raiders that you're going to be walking into, and you don't have to worry about some of the things that past Raider coaches and GMs have had to worry about, which I think is why Ben is interested in this job and why Ben did a 180 on this job. And I think they're definitely in play right there with the Jaguars and the Bears. I don't know that Ben's made any decision on which one he likes more than the next. Hasn't met with any of these people in person yet, obviously. But the Raiders have put something intriguing in front of him and a lot of other people that looks a lot different than what you would have thought of the Raiders over the last 15 or 20 years.
Well, I could ask you 1 or 2 questions, but I'm not going to ask you about the Steelers quarterback because they don't know what they're doing, and I think they want to be patient. That's their history. So I'm going to ask you about the Jets. They're selling on the market. They're selling. We gave Saleh 5 years, Joe Douglas 6 years, or whatever it is. We are patient. We're not the Raiders. We're not the Bears. Whatever. Yeah. I do think there's the Aaron Rodgers issue, but I don't think that's as big an issue because Aaron's arguably in his last year and has clearly lost the power that he had. In fact, I think Aaron's camp has come out and said, if it's not the right coach and GM, I'm not staying. Will anybody hire a coach that I don't know why I think it's going to be the Saints or the Jets this weekend? Will anybody make a move this weekend because of the playoff games? The league would prefer you wait until next week And your thoughts on are the Jets going to make a move quickly?
So I would say I would be on watch for the Titans to name a GM. Would probably be the next shoe to drop. As far as coaches go, I think teams are going to wait to do the in-person stuff next week, which you can start to do the in-person stuff on Monday, I believe it is, as soon as the divisional round is over. Look, I think what the Jets have sort of offered guys is look, whoever we pick, whether it's a GM or a coach, we're going to give you the opportunity to build this in your own image. So they've left it open. They haven't said we're hiring one before the other, and they're going to decide, okay, here's the person we want as the leader of our organization. Then that person is going to help pick his partner, and then those two are going to go to work. And so, for some of the guys in the running, I think Aaron Glenn's got a really good shot at that job, and I think Aaron Glenn's going to be a head coach somewhere. So, Aaron Glenn, if he comes in, who does he bring with him? Is it somebody like a Ray Agnew from Detroit, like a Lance Newmark from Washington, who was in Detroit with him, one of the guys in New Orleans? I think that's certainly a possibility. Do they bring in somebody who's more experienced, like an Arthur Smith? Who would Arthur Smith bring with him as a GM? Or do they go the GM route? If Tennessee doesn't hire Mike Borgonzi from Kansas City, does Mike Borgonzi come in as the general manager? Does Matt Nagy come with him as the coach? I think, I think whatever they do, it's going to be based on one person. They'll bring in one person, whether it's a coach or GM, and then build around that person. And I think that that's the appeal of the job. You look at it, take the quarterback out of it. We know Aaron's on 17 or 18 right now when it comes to his career, right? Not just in the back nine. So you look at it and you say, okay, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams, Olu Fashanu, Breece Hall. They've got the core of a pretty good team. Jermaine Johnson, a pretty good young team there, if you can get some of the key positions filled out. So they do have something to sell there. Now, what you have to wrap your head around is ownership. But, I do think next week at some point they will pick either a head coach or general manager and build out from there. It wouldn't surprise me if that guy was Aaron Glenn.
Albert Breer, as always, Monday morning quarterback. Good luck to you and the Buckeyes, my friend. I see that helmet back there. That's not a Notre Dame helmet.
That's get it for you. You see all the Buckeye leaves on it?
Yeah, I see that. Good seeing you, my man.
Good to see you, Colin.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.